What if the most powerful country in the world was secretly run by an unelected woman? Discover the shocking story of Edith Wilson, who took control after her husband's massive stroke, forging his signature and deciding the fate of nations. The president sat motionless in his grand study. The heavy curtains muffled the sounds from the bustling city outside. A thick fog of silence hung in the room, interrupted only by the soft ticking of an ornate clock. His breath was shallow, each inhale a fragile whisper against the cold air. The shadows on the walls seemed to creep closer, swallowing the fading light. Across the hall, footsteps echoed faintly, hesitant yet purposeful. His wife entered quietly, her face composed but eyes sharp with an unreadable intensity. She approached the president's side and gently closed his eyes. The weight of her secret pressed heavily on her shoulders. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, but the reality was far colder. Outside, the world awaited the strong leader who would shape their fate. No one could know the truth hidden behind these walls. She turned off the study light, leaving the room in darkness. Her heart pounded fiercely, a frantic rhythm against the suffocating calm. In the mirror, her reflection was a stranger, calm, poised, but harboring a dangerous resolve. The lines of power were about to be redrawn, quietly and without witness. Tomorrow, she would stand where he once stood. The country would never suspect a man they mourned was gone, because the president who had led them was no longer alive. And in his place, his wife would wear his face, speak his words, and rule the nation. Her smile was cold, a mask perfected for the eyes of millions. Inside, a storm raged, fear, determination, and an unyielding will to survive. She rehearsed his voice, his mannerisms, his smile. Every detail mattered, because one slip could shatter everything. The night stretched on, endless and suffocating. The line between truth and deception blurred beneath the weight of her secret. She pressed her hand to the cold marble desk, steadying herself. The world did not know the president had died, and they never would, because from this night forward, the nation's leader was no longer a man, but a woman, hidden behind the mask of the man they loved. Her breath caught as a distant thunder rolled through the city. Power had a new guardian now, and she would not let it slip away. The first light of dawn seeped through the cracks in the curtains. She stood before the mirror again, her eyes searching for the woman beneath the disguise. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the tailored suit that once belonged to her husband. The weight of the presidency settled heavily on her shoulders, heavier than any garment. Outside, the world stirred, unaware of the silent shift that had taken place behind closed doors. Her phone buzzed softly, breaking the silence. Urgent messages, the daily demands of a nation. She swallowed hard, steeling herself for the performance ahead. Each step toward the office felt like stepping deeper into a web of lies. The halls whispered memories of the man she had lost and the role she must now play. Her voice, practiced and steady, carried the weight of authority as she greeted her aides. No one questioned her presence. No one saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Behind the confident facade, a storm brewed. Fear of discovery, of failure, of losing control. She remembered the final moments, the cold stillness of his final breath. A shiver ran down her spine. Her mind raced. How long could the secret remain buried? How many shadows would she have to dance with before the truth surfaced? The cameras flashed as she stepped onto the stage to address the nation. The world saw strength, resolve, continuity. But behind a polished smile was a heart pounding with terror, because every word spoken was a thread holding fragile deception together, and the price of unraveling would be more than anyone could imagine. She gazed out at the sea of faces, their trust both a blessing and a burden. In that moment, she was no longer the grieving wife. She was a president. But the secret beneath her skin was a prison, one built with love, fear, and a desperate hope for survival. The days blurred into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Every meeting, every handshake, every speech was a careful dance on a razor's edge. She studied her husband's mannerisms relentlessly, perfecting every gesture, every inflection. Her aides noticed subtle changes, but dismissed them as stress or fatigue. Late at night, when the halls grew silent, she allowed herself a moment of raw grief. The cold walls echoed with memories of laughter and whispered promises. Yet the facade had to remain unbroken. The country depended on it. One evening, a visitor arrived unexpectedly. A close advisor, trusted by the late president, had come with questions. His eyes searched hers, looking for something hidden beneath the surface. A bead of sweat traced a line down her temple. She forced a steady smile, answering with practiced calm. But the advisor's suspicion hung thick in the air like a storm before the rain. She knew then the danger was no longer just in hiding the truth. It was in convincing those who loved the man she replaced. The advisor's gaze pierced through her like a blade. "You must understand," he said softly. "We all mourn him. But the country needs to know what truly happened." Her heart clenched. Was the secret safe? Or was the web unraveling faster than she could control? The night stretched long as she contemplated her next move. The way of the presidency was no longer just about power. It was about survival, hers, and the fragile legacy of a man who would never return. In the shadowed silence, she whispered to herself. She rose slowly, the resolve in her eyes hardening like steel. No matter the cost, she would protect the truth. The country's stability depended on it. She reached for the old leather-bound journal, the one filled with her husband's thoughts, plans, and fears. Flipping to the fragile pages, she found strength in his words. She was no longer just his wife. She was the keeper of his legacy. The next day, in front of the cameras and the world, she spoke with renewed authority. Her voice was clear, unwavering, carrying the weight of both grief and determination. Behind her, advisors exchanged cautious glances. Some believed in her, others doubted. But she would prove herself, for the nation, for the man she loved, and for the secret that bound them together. Deep inside, a silent vow echoed. No one would ever discover what truly happened that night. Not now, not ever. And as the sun set over the Capitol, the woman who had replaced a man prepared to rewrite history itself. Whispers began to circulate in the corridors of power. Questions, quiet and careful, slipped through closed doors. A trusted aide noticed inconsistencies in the president's schedule. Another remarked on the subtle shift in tone during cabinet meetings. Yet no one dared voice their suspicions aloud. Fear and loyalty wove a tangled web around the truth. One stormy evening, a mysterious envelope arrived at the presidential residence. Inside, a single photograph, the late president alive, taken just days ago. Her breath hitched as the walls seemed to close in. How was this possible? Who could have sent it? Her carefully constructed world began to tremble. The secret she had guarded so fiercely now threatened to unravel completely. In that moment, she understood the true cost of power. It was not just about control or survival. It was about facing the shadows that refused to stay buried. With trembling hands, she folded the photograph and placed it deep inside the drawer. Tomorrow, she would confront this new threat. But tonight, the weight of deception pressed down harder than ever before. She was no longer simply the president's wife. She was the last line between chaos and order, and the world would soon learn just how far she was willing to go. The morning sun pierced through the heavy drapes, casting sharp lines across the room. She stood before her closest advisors, eyes steely and voice unwavering. "We have a threat," she declared quietly. "No one outside this room can know." Plans were quickly drawn, strategies whispered behind closed doors. Trust was scarce. Betrayal lurked in every shadow. Her every move was calculated, measured, precise. Yet beneath the surface, a gnawing fear clawed at her resolve. Who had dared to challenge the illusion? She summoned the nation's intelligence chief, a man loyal to the memory of her husband. His gaze bore into her, searching for cracks in her armor. "I want answers," she said firmly. "Find whoever sent that photograph, and stop them before the truth destroys us all." Days passed with no word. The silence was deafening, suffocating. Then a coded message arrived. A warning. The game had changed. She was no longer just playing to keep a secret. She was fighting for her life. And the presidency was now a battlefield where shadows held the ultimate power. Late that night, she stood alone on the balcony, the cold wind biting at her skin. The city below sparkled with life, oblivious to the storm brewing within these walls. Her thoughts raced. Who was the enemy? A rival, an insider, or someone from the past she had not yet seen? Her reflection shimmered in the glass behind her, the woman who wore a mask so well that even she struggled to remember who she truly was. Suddenly, a soft chime broke the silence, a secure message on her phone. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The text was simple, chilling. "You are not as invisible as you think." A chill ran down her spine. The delicate balance she had maintained was fracturing. Every step forward felt like walking deeper into a maze with no exit. She swallowed hard, determination hardening into steel. If they wanted to fight, she would give them one. Because losing was not an option, not when so much was at stake. She turned away from the night sky, ready to face whatever darkness awaited. The next morning, the palace buzzed with unusual tension. Whispers floated through the corridors like ghosts. Her trusted aide approached, eyes wide with urgency. "There has been a leak," the aide said in a hushed tone. She felt the room tilt, the walls closing in, a secret no longer buried, exposed to the unforgiving light. She clenched her fists, forcing calm. This was a test, a challenge to her carefully woven deception. She called an emergency meeting with her inner circle. Every face was grim, every word weighted with fear. "Contain the damage," she commanded. "We cannot let this tear us apart." Yet inside, doubt gnawed relentlessly. How much longer could she keep the truth hidden? The line between power and ruin grew thinner by the hour. Outside, the world waited for their leader's next move. Inside, a woman fought to hold on to a secret that could shatter everything. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the capital. She sat alone in the dimly lit room, the weight of days pressing down on her. The secret she had guarded so fiercely now lay exposed, fragile as glass. Yet in the quiet, she found a strange sense of peace. Power had come at cost, a price paid in silence and sacrifice. She had become more than a wife, more than a shadow. She had become a leader, shaped by loss and resilience. The world might never know the truth, but she did, and that was enough. As night embraced the city, she rose and walked to a window. The stars shimmered above, distant yet constant. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment, a breath freed from fear. For in the end, she was the woman who survived the greatest deception of all, and that was her true power.